Howdy YouTube, and welcome to another episode of the Gunman. So today we're going to be doing a review and demo on the brand new Sagola 4600 Overland Adventure. So the gun itself will perform exactly the same as the regular Sagola 4600s, but as you can see, it's a pretty cool limited edition. So it's designed to replace the Trophy Truck series, which was a pretty popular limited edition of the same gun, so the 4600. It does come in a few different setups, but it's only got one choice of air caps. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to swap an existing air cap that you have off another Sagola, but DVR Titania is actually my preferred air cap on the Sagola. Now I actually do get daily use out of the Sagola 4600. My daily driver for wet on wet is actually the 1.3 XL, but I do run the Titania air cap as well, so it is actually my preferred air cap for this. There are some other options if you go for the standard Sagola, but as I say, with this limited edition, you only have the one air cap choice. You can go the 1.2, the 1.2 XL, which is what I got, the 1.3, the 1.3 XL, or the 1.4. If you missed it at the start, the PPS2 adapter number is S32. So one thing I like to do before I use any spray gun in the booth is just take it into that little spray booth area where we clean our guns out and just make sure I'm happy with the fan. I give it a bit of an inspection. What I like to do is actually put some waterborne cleaner or water cleaner or water gun cleaner. I find it's just like a little bit heavier than thinners. The thinners will sort of break the fan up and you won't get a true reading of what your gun's actually going to spray like. So yeah, where possible, I like to put some water cleaner in there just to get a good gauge of what the gun's going to spray like. Another little thing I thought I'd put in earlier there was the fact that I don't actually wipe my guns down with normal cotton rags anymore. I've found some are worse than others. Some rag companies are worse than others. But I've found that the rags that we're getting here, they're really bad with little bits of lint and dust. So I've just been making sure I wipe my spray guns down with microfibers. I don't even allow those old cotton rags in my paint mixing room because I was having a bit of a dust issue at this shop at the moment. So yeah, there's been lots and lots of things I've had to do to eliminate the dust. That's probably warrants its own video. Anyway, let's continue along with the spray gun review. So the clear coat I'm using on this bonnet here is the PPG LVC 105 clear. Again, I've been just sort of trialing a few different things to get the best possible results out of this color. So the color is 46V. It's a candy, not the best looking candy, to be honest. If you put this next to a normal candy, it looks dirty and muddy and pretty average, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, for a factory color, it's definitely pretty good. But yeah, it turns out the reason why it's a bit muddy compared to most candies is that they do actually put some UV resistance type things in it to stop it from fading so much. That's what the rep tells me anyway, and it sounds like a feasible answer because they are daily driver cars that do get left out in the sun. They're not, low riders that only get bought out a couple of times a week at best, and then most of the time in the garage. But either way, DVR Titania. So it turns out, like, I didn't even realize, but the gauge that I was using, the Sagola gauge, so I guess this is definitely, relevant to a review. The Sagola gauge I had, it died. I didn't even realize it. So what they say is, in these analog gauges, they've got a spring in there, and every time you plug them in, you're bursting like a high amount of pressure onto that spring, and they can start to stretch. So what ended up happening, I was just like, the first time I was using this gun, I was like, geez, it feels like it needs a lot of pressure. Like, why does it need, it was about 40 PSI. Well, it was reading 40 PSI, but it wasn't actually 40 PSI. So once I realized that it actually was that gauge, I pulled it off, swapped it out with the SATA, and the SATA was reading true at 2 bar. It nearly sounded too high, if you know what I mean. So the gun itself probably only needs around 2 bar pressure, but as I always say, adjust as required. So at the moment what you see me doing is spraying some candy with it, and as it turned out, so I've had a lot of experience, believe it or not, spraying this color. I've done a lot of R&D to get the absolute best finishes that I can out of this color. one of the issues that I was getting was orange peel. Look, again, this probably does warrant its own video, but for the mixing ratios and everything, I did end up finding the 1.2 was a little bit restrictive, to be honest. So the gun I ended up finding to be best with the amount of candy that I'm putting in and the color that I'm looking for. I've actually found the 1.3 was better. So I've been generally using my TE20 1.3 on my GTI Pro, that turquoise Gunman Edition GTI Pro, and that is perfect. Now, in saying that, I'm not blaming this gun for not putting enough on. It's more the fact that if you put too much candy in your clear coat, it makes it go really thick and gluggy. So what I've got to do is put a little bit less candy in per coat, but a little bit more paint on, if that makes sense. So yeah, the 1.2 I found is a little bit too restrictive for the candy. So again, it's not the gun's fault, it's more just an observation that I made. So I'm probably not going forward, I'm probably not really going to be using this gun for the candy. I've got to find a position for it because it's definitely a very good gun, but at the moment I've been using the SATA X5500 RPO pattern, so not the I, for base coat. And that's, again, mainly because of that dust issue that I was having. So because I'm spraying PPG again at the moment, they reckon that you're best off using the SATA, mainly because of the pots, because the 3M pots can actually sort of push the little, like, PPG is actually a very gritty paint. You can strain it with like a fine mesh strainer, and then like straight away strain it again and strain more stuff out of it. It doesn't even make sense to me, but I think a lot of my dust issues is actually coming from the base coat itself, right? So what they say is with the SATA RPS pots, because it only operates under the venturi, it's not in a bag, so you're not actually pushing as much of those little things through. So I'm actually hoping to get a RPS adapter for my DV1 1.3 base coat gun, because I do actually prefer that. It seems to get a little bit more material on, it's a bit faster. So yeah, eventually I will be getting one of those adapters, but they do seem a little bit hard to find. So if anyone knows the adapter number, be sure to shoot it down in the comments. I saw them going for like £60, that must be like $120 or something, so definitely not cheap for those SATA adapters. But yeah, I think it's one of those little things that my boss said to me, hey, how did this one come up so clean? And I said, look man, it's all those little 1%ers. We've done all these little things and they all add up. I can't just say it's one thing, you know what I mean? It's using microfibers, it's not using those the dusty rags, it's tack ragging, it's like a big list of things. And like I say, I actually might have to do a video on how to control dust, because I've been through a 2-month ordeal of trying to keep this dust down. I'm finally starting to get there. Look, I mean, dust is something that you're always going to get in your jobs, but this one here is when I'm starting to absolutely nail it. 3 or 4 nibs in a bonnet, that's not a big deal, but when you're getting like 1 nib every sort of 2 inches or something, that's going to be a bit of an issue. But as you can see, I'm getting some very nice finishes, and like I was telling you at the start, for whatever reason, whenever you use this PPG candy, it just goes all thick and gluggy. So to be able to get finishes like this out of this PPG system is actually quite impressive, I must say. And it probably does warrant its own video for to help any of you guys who maybe out there trying to get this PPG candy to lay down nicely. But that one there, you may have actually noticed that I think that one was a flow coat anyway. So yeah, some of them, when they don't turn out that well the first time, you just got to chop them down and reflow them. This one here was not a flow coat, but yeah, this is another little thing that I found out that you can do. You can actually denib. So what we do is we float the candy in 2-pack clear, and yeah, you can actually denib it with a bit of 1200 and then give it a really good tack rag down, because what we do is, like, I'll use fast thinner in a sprint clear, so it's a fast clear to start off with, and then I use fast thinners in it. So you give it like a 10 to 15 minute, I've found 15 minutes bake is the best. And then it's in this window where it's still wet enough to get your chemical adhesion, so it's a little bit sticky, but it's also dry enough to sand down any big nibs like you saw there. So yeah, there was a couple. And I also found that, yeah, just because it's such a fine sandpaper, it didn't actually seem to change the color. Yeah, like I say, I'll try anything, you know. This may not have worked. The first time I did it, I'm like, this is not a guarantee. I could end up having to repaint this panel, but at the end of the day, it paid off. And yeah, it's just another sort of string to add to your bow. I've been treating these jobs like a bit of a science project, and I guess it's been a little bit of a fun. It's been challenging at times, but yeah, as you can see, the gun itself here is a ripper. It's got a nice large size fan on it, not too big, not too small. It operates, it's very easy to use, right? So full fan, full fluid, and then adjust your pressure as required. As you can see there on the gauge, I think it's running at about 2 bar or 29 psi. So this bonnet here was with the 136 clear from memory. Again, I have been changing them up a bit to try and find the absolute best for these jobs. I'm really not the biggest fan of this 136 clear, but with the 105 clear, I would just find I would always get this little very fine solvent boil, even down the sides, which is pretty much unheard of, you know. Like generally you'll only get a solvent boil when you'll overload it on the roof bonnet or boot lid, but I was getting it down the sides where you definitely, like, there's no way you can overload it down the sides. You've just put a thin coat on. So I ended up having to go back to 136 clear, which is definitely not my favorite clear, because it's like it doesn't flow, like it'll just stay exactly where you put it. That's why you can see, like, it's not like if I was, say, using any Axe Alta clear, you would get a flow and that would be like flat and glassy, but it sort of stands up and it just won't flow. So at the end of the day, you just do the best as what you can with what you've got to work with, I guess. So I feel like I went off on a little bit of a few tangents in this video, and I started talking about the materials more than the spray gun, but hopefully you got enough out of it to decide whether or not this gun is for you. Look, the prices are getting a little bit higher, and look, you got to put that down to inflation. Another part of it is, I think the exchange rate is not really favoring us Aussies at the moment. That's why I actually did put the 3 main currencies. So yeah, England, Australia, and America, because I don't think the inflation is as bad in America as what it is in Australia. Or I don't know, I'm not an expert on all of that, but yeah, the price did seem to be a fair bit higher here in Australia. Perhaps that's because our currency is just not as strong, but yeah, again, I'm not an expert in all of that. So at the end of the day, like, the price is something that you've got to decide whether or not it's worth for yourself. Yeah, are wages keeping up with inflation for you? If they are, hey, maybe it's a buy, but if not, yeah, maybe a pass and just sort of, you know, go with a slightly cheaper spray gun. But they definitely do have some strong points, these Sagolas. So they've got no plastic seals in them. You can actually dunk these in thinners overnight and they will not get damaged. So they are sort of bulletproof. The original Sagola that I've had for years, the original, when these guns were first bought out, I got one to review from Sagola directly, and I've still got it, and it's just a workhorse, and it'll just keep working day and night, no dramas at all. Another thing worth mentioning is that you can definitely use this gun for base coat, wet on wet, clear coat, pretty much anything you'll throw at it, except for heavy primers. So you know, you're not going to be getting good performance out of it with a high build primer. That's what your 1.82 mils are for. But yeah, in saying all that, the reason that I didn't show you guys any base coat in this is because, like what I mentioned before, is that I've been using the RPS pots and I don't actually have an RPS adapter for this gun. Anyway, it's all good. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you did want to support the show, be sure to go and check out the link in the description. You can buy this gun from Spray Guns Direct. They do ship worldwide. And be sure to remember, if you ever buy a spray gun from Spray Guns Direct and you tell them that I sent you, just shoot them an email, tell them Gunny sent me, can you please add a free spray gun cleaning kit? They'll throw that in free of charge. Anyway, until next time, get out there and paint some shit. Gunman out.
I'd like to say a big thanks to everyone for watching, and if you'd like to support the channel further, you're more than welcome to go over and check out some of the merchandise we've got. My personal favourite is those spray suits, so they're a good quality Colad branded spray suit with the Gunman logo on it. There's also hats, drink coolers, hoodies and t-shirts, so be sure to go over and check out the link in the description if you are interested.